Okay, so the other day we discussed about the statistical order. Of course, we discussed even the real order, but we had some issue on the posting front. So let's discuss the real internal order again. So in order to have a real order, basically the main purpose of real order is to capture the expenses, and at the end of the month we will be transferring the amount to certain other object. So you can transfer to different objects like cost center, profitability segment. Like you can transfer the amount uh, to different objects. You can do that. Now the main point in the case of real order is the real order has to be settled at the end of the month. It has to be settled at the end of the month. So for that reason we require a settlement profile. A settlement profile is required in order to do that. Okay, so that's the main difference between real order and statistical order. Statistical orders are created just to capture certain information, and at any given point of time, if we want to see the details of that particular thing, we can do. That is for statistical internal order. So we don't require to settle at the end of the month in the case of statistical, but the same thing is required in the case of real internal orders. So let's create one internal order.
Then one before you move forward. A statistical order, has also expiry, like time.
It does not have any time limit for it.
Okay, so we
We
can,
can use
just leave it open as long as we want.
yes, it's a
Okay,
master data, right? Master data. So you can keep that as long as you want.
okay, but real
But
order.
only the thing is, we if we close that internal order again based on the residence, it will be available. So normally we don't close that,
But real order
the
can be
master data.
okay. Real order has a, that time frame, like 2 years, 1 year, whatever
No, no,
time
it's
we
there
decide.
is no such time limit for that.
So it is not a good idea to just archive that, real order or statistical order. We have to just keep it open as long as we wanted to. But only thing is that, nobody can, post after, certain date, and after that date.
Correct, correct. So in that case, you can keep that as a techo. So the moment you keep it as techo, technically complete, we cannot post any transaction to that particular internal order.
Okay, I see. But after
Correct.
after some time, maybe 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years from now, if company decide, we can always archive that.
We can do that. I mean, you need to close that internal order,
Okay.
and based on the residence time, it will be available. And after that, you can keep that under our archive.
Okay.
Okay, so let's discuss about the real internal order. In order to create an internal order, a real internal order, it is better to have a different order type. Okay, real internal order type. So define order types. The path for this is IMG, controlling internal orders, order management, define order types. Just execute. Here we have different categories. Okay, the main purpose of this thing is the category. Category is important. So this is what we call it as order category. So far we have seen cost element category, cost center category, and this is what order category. The moment I select one, it is nothing but internal order. If it is a production order, we will be using 10. That's the main difference. If it is a PM order, we will be using 30. If it is a process order, we will be using 40. Right? So we have different here, QM order, CO production order. So like that we have different. So order category will differentiate what kind of this order is. What kind of this order is. Okay. So based on this category, system understand that this is an internal order. Okay. So in order to create our own, let's go and create in the new entries. Go to new entries. I will say 20, or I will sorry, order category. This order category going to be 101. enter. Now here order type, I will say 20 RO, real internal order. And real internal order requires a settlement profile that we will be creating later. Now object class is going to be the overhead cost, and you can keep some residence time. Okay, and status profile you can select, and you can keep release immediately, and I will say revenue postings as well. Classification for reporting purpose, if you want you can activate this. So with this some other reports will be activated and you can see your reports. I'm not sure what reports that are falling under this category, but there are certain other reports that will be available once we select this classification. Just save. Number range not processed, that's fine, we can do that in the next step, or else you can do it from here also. Both ways is possible. So select here, and this is the one that we have just created. Select the order type, select this assignment, and double click on the number range where you want to keep under. So double click on 01. Now we have here, we have 20 RO here under this. Just to save. Back, you can see now the number range here. Right, back. Now you can see here. Now what else we require to do? We need to do a settlement profile. So let's jump into that. So settlement. Now here, maintain settlement cost elements. At the moment we will see, we will go by primary cost element. I will show you the secondary cost elements in the next step. We have two types of settlement cost elements here. One is an internal, the other one is an external. I'll go and create both of them and I'll show you which one is being picked up here. Okay, that we will discuss later. Now before we get into that, let's discuss this. I mean, before we go and create the settlement profile, we require this one, maintain allocation structure. Maintain allocation structure. Okay, so maintain allocation structure is required in the settlement profile. Okay, so first let's create the allocation structure. Maintain allocation structure. The path for this is IMG, controlling, internal orders, actual postings, settlement, maintain allocation structure, just execute. Just execute. This is the one we have created already. You can go ahead and use the same thing, or if you want, you can create your own. Okay, so what I will do, I will go and create a new one. Just say 20 allocation structure. Our company code is 2000. Press enter. Now select this. What is allocation structure? It means you are allocating the amounts to different objects. I mean, suppose say I'm opening an Excel sheet. Okay, I have different expenses. Let us say okay, we have different expenses. Let us say salary, let rent, electricity, commission, and let us say power. Okay, then let us say depreciation, let us say revenues, sales. I have different transactions, maybe revenues, maybe expenses, or whatever. So now, the amount posted to this, the salary, I want that to be settled to cost center. Rent, I want to be settled to a one internal order. Electricity, I want this to be settled to profitability segment. I want this to be settled to sales order. I want this to be settled to WBS. I want this to be settled to AUC. And finally, I want this to be settled to production order. Like different objects I have. Okay, in this case, what we will do, we will create these many assignments. We will have to create these many assignments because each assignment is getting settled to a different object. Each assignment is getting to a different objects. Suppose if these are all getting settled to one object, then you don't require these many object, these many assignments. You just create one. Or for all expenses, you can create one assignment. For all revenues, you can create another assignment. But that does not matter at all. Whether you keep the same one or multiple, it does not mean, because ultimately all these are going into one object only one receiver in this. Okay, so based on the receiver objects, you will be creating those many assignments. That is the purpose. Now, why we can say allocation structure? Because we are allocating this to cost center, this to sales order, this to production order. Like we are allocating the funds to different receiver objects. Receiver object. That is the reason why we will call it as allocation, allocating the amounts, allocation structure. So this entire thing will be in one structure, so we call it as allocation structure. The entire thing will be part of, the settlement profile. So in settlement profile, you cannot keep all of them, and all we are keeping in one structure. That is what we call it as allocation structure.
Okay. And one question. When we did distributions and assessment cycle, that
Uh-huh.
time in a distribution cycle, we were allocating this cost in the same configurations. We did not
Correct.
define that time allocation structure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so why do we require when settling from internal order to different object, we need that we simply can do the same way as we did for the distribution cycle, correct?
No, not distribution. That's basically we have used in the case of assessment.
Assessment, yes.
But here, what transactions are you considering? That is not clear. There in the distribution or assessment, we are mentioning these are the cost elements.
Oh,
We are telling the cost elements over there, and we are telling what is the cost center. We are telling all of them in that sender receiver tab. In the
yeah,
sender receiver tab, we are mentioning very clearly what are our cost elements, what are our cost centers, right? We have mentioned there clearly,
right.
but we are not mentioning anywhere here in this, in the
No,
settlement profile. Yeah.
in a settlement profile, that if they cannot put the same tab as in assessment and distribution cycle,
No, we don't have an option that at all.
we don't
We
have
will
it.
see. Yeah, we don't have that option at all. We are not mentioning what is your source cost element, what is your target object.
I see.
We don't have that option at all.
So because of that, we have to do allocations.
Yes, allocation structure is required. Of course, as you said, in the case of assessment, of course, we can use using the internal order there, but again, we will have to enter the source cost element and everything, right? One second, let me go. let me take you to that place. So when you go here in the cost center, and when you're creating your assessment or distribution, whatever it is, now if you see over here, here we are mentioning what is our carrier we are mentioning over here. And here I'm mentioning clearly what is my cost center, what is my sender cost center, and what cost elements I will have to pick up. I'm mentioning over there, I'm mentioning over here, and accordingly I'm considering the cost center, receiver cost centers here.
Yes, that is correct. Absolutely correct. You are right about it. My question was that, the same functionality they should have been provided into internal order. Right,
Right. We
yeah,
can do that. We can do here as well, but the settlement process is different here. I
right.
mean, the internal order, the process of settlement is different. We
Okay.
cannot do exactly how we are doing in the cost center. That is not the right approach for us,
I see. Okay.
because here you can select the object, right? The receiver objects. Here you have some limitation.
Mhm.
Here you have some limitation in the receiver object, but whereas you can have multiple over there. You cannot keep the profitability segment over here in this.
Oh, okay.
You
I
can
see
keep
that.
the you can keep the profitability segment over there. That's a
Oh, I
wide
see.
option.
Right, right. So I think now I understood, why is that, I just was trying to understand what is the difference between these, settling from here
Correct,
and, other
correct,
kind of structure.
correct,
But
correct.
that is a very good explanation. Very good.
Yeah. So here, based on the receiver objects, you will have to create those many assignments. If at all you're keeping all of them into one object, then you just require one assessment and you can do that. Or the other option you have. Okay, the first condition is, if at all you have one receiver object, you can create only one assignment and you can settle the entire thing to this. Or you can keep one assignment for all expenses, one assignment for revenue. Or there is a different scenario. I mean, business really want the carrier from here to here. The carrier, they want the carrier as well. Carrier in the sense, suppose salaries we have. I want the salary cost element only while getting transferred to cost center. I want rent to be considered as a carrier while settling this amount to cost center. Similarly, power, I want the same cost element to be considered as a carrier while settling to the cost center. Even in that case also, we will be creating different assignments. Okay, so two situations basically. One is, if at all you have different objects, receiver objects, you will be creating those many assignments. And if at all business wants specifically, they are stressing on the carrier part, so the value will be picked up from here, will be pushed into here. So in moving this, the carrier is required. So you want, if the business wants the same cost element to be considered as a carrier, then we will have to use those many assignments. There are two situations in that case. In based on that, we will be creating those many assignments. Okay, so at the moment we will be considering the cost center. Okay, we will be considering the cost center, and rest all will be considered in the product costing. And even after the co-op, we can settle one internal order to profitability segment also, that we will see later. Okay, so typically this is what on the whole. Now we are allocating the amounts to different R1 objects. So that is what we call it as allocating the amounts. The entire thing is there in one tree, that is called structure. So allocation structure is required in the case of settlement. So first let's go and create the allocation structure. Okay, so allocation structure 20 I've just created. Select the same thing, double click on assignments. Here, how many assignments do you require? That is based on the business expectation. So I'll just say 10, 20. I will say here revenues, and I will say here expenses. Now select expenses, double click on source. What are my expenses related stuff? So I'll say 4 lakhs to 4 lakh 99,999. Or you can create a cost element group. You can do either the way. Okay, just assign the cost elements under source, and this is not as assessment, this is something we call it as settlement. So double click on assign settlement cost element. Now new entries. Here we have an option to select the receiver category. What is your receiver category? So here we are settling this to cost center. So select the cost center. Do you want to go by cost element, or do you want a secondary cost element, settlement secondary cost element? So at the moment I'll show you by cost element. Right, that's it. Press enter, go back to assignment, and you can see it is in the green color. Now similarly revenues, select the revenues, double click on source, and mention here what are your revenue cost elements. Okay, double click on settlement cost element, new entries, and I can select a different one here, different object. So by cost element I'm selecting, press enter. Remember, it is compulsory either a cost element or a secondary cost element. This is called a primary cost element, this is a secondary cost element. You require either this or this, but without that you cannot do anything. So system will not allow you to save unless you settle, unless you put anything in any of these two, and don't put both of them. It allows, it accepts only one, either primary cost element or secondary cost element.
So suppose if we select settlement secondary cost element, we do not have to check.
It will not allow us to save at all.
I see.
Okay, I'm just saving now. Okay, I've saved it now. So we have got allocation structure back. So we got our allocation structure 20. Now let me go and create the settlement profile. So maintain settlement profile, path is same, just execute. Double click on maintain settlement profile. Here, let us create our own settlement profile. Okay, now I'm going into new entries to create a settlement profile. So remember, the place is the same to create settlement profile for your production order, sales order, everything. Everything is done over here itself. Okay, so go to new entries to create our own. I will say 20 RO, real odd internal order. I want to keep full amount, allocation structure, the one what we have created. Source structure is not required. PA transfer structure is required when you want to settle it to COPA. What is your default cost object here? It is going to be your cost center. Okay, now I want to keep this 100% validation, percentage settlement, equivalence numbers, amount. These three can be seen in the settlement role. Variance to costing based COPA, this we will select during in our product to costing. In our product to costing, we will discuss the variance will be calculated. If you want that variance to be settled to COPA, then we will have to select this. And as I mentioned here, you can keep all of them as a receiver categories. I mean, the optional, or you can keep only those which are relevant. Cost center GL accounts are basically required in this case. You can keep them, of course, the order, internal order, and remaining things you can keep them as settlement not allowed or whatever you want. Okay, so or else you can keep everything in the optional, you will not have any issue. So tomorrow, if you want to use the settlement profile in order to consider your sales order, you can use the same thing. So I'm keeping everything in the optional. So I'm keeping everything in the optional. Now, the settlement documents require a finance documents. When do we require a finance document? When you are settling the amount external to the controlling. It means when you are settling the amount to a finance object like fixed assets or something, then you require a finance document. So in such a case, the document type will play a role and the number will be picked up from this document number. Then maximum number of distribution rules, of course, we have seen the importance of this already. Residence time, I've just mentioned 3. Presenter, save it. So we have got our settlement profile. This needs to be linked to our order type. So in order to establish this to order type, the link between order type and the settlement profile, just double click here on this enter settlement profile in the order types. Double click on that, pick up our internal order. Yeah, here we have, and select the same thing, 20 RO. Okay, just save. Okay, 20 RO. Now settlement profile is linked to our order type. Now you can go and create an internal order using this internal order type, and let's post transaction. Then after that, we will see the settlement.
On a settlement profile, you mentioned 3 months as a residence.
Residence. Yeah,
Correct. Okay, so that means after 3 months, nobody can use this settlement profile, correct?
that's what. Once you close, once the status shows as closed, then it is available for 3 months. After that, we can, of course, once the status comes to a close, you cannot post any transaction.
Right.
Once the status comes to a TECO, technically complete, you cannot post any transaction to the internal order.
No, on the settlement profile, you mentioned 3 months residence.
Now, that is the residence time. You are talking about two things here. So the residence in time is nothing but it will be deactivated. I mean it will fall under the archive after 3 months once from the date when the internal order status becomes as closed. So from the closed status, it will be available for 3 months because we have selected 3 months here. Now, if you don't want to post any transaction to the internal order, you can keep the internal order in the TECO status. So if you have the internal order in the TECO status, you will not be allowed to post any transaction in the internal order.
Okay, TECO order, I mean status or complete. They are both, will not allow us, to put any transaction.
Yes, but closed, the problem with the closed is once you keep that in the close, after 3 months, that will be archived.
I see.
Okay.
Yes.
So now I've just saved it. Going back to this, let me post a transaction into the F-02. So I'm taking some data. 2000 is our company code and currency is USD. 40 posting key 4 lakhs is the expenditure. Now amount I will say 5,000. Now you can select cost center or internal order. Sorry, we need to create an internal order. We have not created an internal order. Let's go and create first internal order. So accounting, controlling internal orders, master data, special functions, order, and KO01 is the transaction code. Select that and take our controlling area 2000. Order type is 20 RO. Okay, press enter. What happened? Someone has deleted this. Oh my God. I think 1248 only. I think I kept in 1248 only. Let me just check that. I think I kept it in 1248 only. Let me just take a confirmation on this. So general controlling, organization, maintain controlling area, double click on maintain controlling area, 1248, assignment of company codes. Yes, 1248 is our controlling area. Okay, so 1248 is our controlling area. Order type is the same. Just press enter. I'm saying real internal order. Okay, you can select the company code. 2000 is our company code. Profit center, I will say 1000. Okay, and in control data, we will not be selecting statistical internal order. Okay, and it is released automatically. And go to settlement rule. You can save it and come back here, or you can do it from here directly. So select settlement rule. Here category, what categories have we kept? So based on our optional entries, we can see all of them here, but among them we want this to be settled to cost center. So select the cost center. And which cost center do you want to keep here? You can select the relevant cost center. I don't know. Yeah, this is the only one cost center we have, 2000. And I'm saying I'll have to say either percentage, equivalence number, or amount. I'm saying 100%. Okay, just to save. Just to save.
So, Nanda, I think there is so much confusion comes here. Here, settlement rules. Then we have a settlement profile. So we have to be very,
Based on the settlement profile, you can see the receiver categories here. Okay, so what it does is what it does is when you are settling any internal order, first what system does is, what is the order type associated with this internal order? System checks that. Oh, classification is not being generated, so that's a problem. Okay, now I'll tell you one thing. So here internal order, the internal order, when you are settling an internal order, what system does is system checks the order type. Okay, what is a settlement profile associated with that order type? It checks. It goes and checks the receiver object. So these many are the options. Now it comes here it comes back here to the settlement rule. What is the receiver? It checks here, and based on that, it will settle the amount. Okay, it will settle the amount. Now the problem with here is the classification. I think some basis thing is missed, but anyways, I will check that. Classification, because of the classification is not generated at. I will check what to do on the classification thing. Normally we don't have to do anything.
No, I think now it will settle. I mean, no, I mean, now it will, let you post because you uncheck that classifications.
Yeah, I've resumed that. Okay. Now, in the case of classification, so basically, this is basically the, basis activity. But anyways, we have changed our order type. In the order, our order type, we have changed the configuration. We have saved it. Let's go and create the internal order again. So data has been, should this be saved? No. Okay. Now, so KO01, again, we are entering into it, controlling area, order type, just press enter. So I will say real internal order. Our company code is 2000 and profit center is 1000. Okay. And in control data, we are not settling the statistical order. Okay. Now go to settlement rule. And here receiver categories, this is based on the settlement profile. You can see all of them based on the settlement profile. So I'm selecting cost center, and what is our settlement receiver. So since we are mentioning cost center, you can see cost center list over here. If you select internal order, you can see the list of internal orders over here. Now the percentage is 100. 100%, just save. Internal order has been saved. 1 all zeros, 27. So let us post a transaction to this, and after that we will see the settlement. Back. Posting a transaction F-02 03/16/2019 and expenses, presenter, I will say 5,000. You can enter cost center or internal order. You can select any, but which one will be considered? Which one will have a priority? Internal order will have a priority over the cost center. So in this case, internal order value will be a real object and the amount posted in cost center will be a statistical one. And when you consider multiple objects, you can consider WBS, you can consider sales order, you can consider profitability segment. So system will have a priority. When you consider cost center only, cost center will be a real object. When you consider cost center WBS element will have high priority. When you consider cost center WBS and order can be anything: internal order, production order, process order, maintenance order, QM order. It can be of anything. So when you consider these three, the order will have a priority. In that case, these two will be a statistical.
Why is that? Why is that? Because that we are entering on internal order. We are.
No,
until
the
the document.
priority, there is a priority. Only one object will be considered as a real object. Suppose now the problem here is, let us say I'm considering internal order and sales order. If these two, if these two are considered as a real object, we are settling this amount, we are settling this amount. It means settlement is happening two times. Let us say we are settling this order to profitability segment, sales order is also getting settled to profitability segment. The transaction is only one, but since the transaction is appearing in both of them, and when you are considering both of them as a real, and when you are settling both of them to a profitability segment, in profitability segment you can see two times the same transaction, which is not correct. So that is the reason why system will consider only one object as a real object. Remaining will be considered as a statistical. So statistical objects cannot be settled.
Yes. Okay. So if that is the case, why we are, why we are mentioning cost center here, since, we
Yes,
know
so
that
to
we,
just for information purpose,
oh, I see. Okay.
if I want to see this transaction in the cost center, I can see that.
Because, this internal order, this is the real internal order, right? It is
Correct,
statistical. Okay. So there,
correct,
that's where, we have on a settlement rule, we have said, we wanted to settle to the cost center. So
correct.
as it is gonna settle in the cost center, do still we required to give cost center here in this
That
case?
I will show you. I'll
Okay,
show you the importance,
I see.
because this you can show, this transaction you can consider as a statistical object, and once you settle it, you can see the difference over there.
Okay.
I'll show you that part.
All right. Okay.
Now here 2000 I've entered cost center, I have entered internal order, and posting key I'll say 50 here, 1,20,000 bank account. Entering same 5,000, entering the due on. Right. Now go to document, simulate, and double click on this line item. You can see both cost center and internal order. Just save. Transaction is posted. Okay, one all zeros, one. Now go to KSB1. KSB1, cost center line item report, controlling area, cost center, and I'm just entering some date over here, date range, execute. You can see here, of course, I've posted one transaction, so you can see both of them here. This is in the INR. Controlling area is in INR. Now I'm changing the layout, taking the value type, assigning onto the left side. Now here you see this is the real transaction, whereas this is the statistical. This is the transaction I posted it yesterday. Now if you see over here 11 is a statistical, whereas 4 is actual. Okay, so 11. Now let us see the internal order line item report. So you can see them in the information system only. Reports for internal orders. Yeah, line items. KOB1. Internal order actual line item report. KOB1. Path for this is easy access, accounting, controlling, internal orders, information system, reports for real internal orders, line items, and KOB1 actual line items. Just enter into this, take the internal order, take the range, date range, and execute. Here you can see hold 2,50,000, and when I select value type, I'm selecting onto the left side. Here I can see 4. 4 is nothing but actual. Actual. Now, so we have entered cost center also while posting the transaction, right? And that is a statistical. And if you want that to be settled, it is not possible because that is a statistical one. Okay. Now it is a real object, so we can settle this. We can settle this. So let me post another transaction. After that, we will see the settlement. F-02 selecting some date. I will say 7,500 or I will say 10,000. I'm just entering the internal order only. 1,20,000. Save. Directly saving. Okay. Documents posted. Now, if you see KOB1, you can find the two transactions with the real object. With the real object. So I think it did not copy it. Value type. Okay. Now here you can see 4. So totally 7.5 lakhs to be settled. Now we will go and settle the same thing. The settlement is one of the month-end activities in the controlling. It can be a production order settlement or sales order settlement, internal order settlement, whatever it is. Plant maintenance order settlement, QM, I mean quality maintenance settlement, whatever it is. All the settlements are month-end activities. So let's go and see the settlement. It is there in the period end closing. Okay. KO88 for individual processing, KO8G for collective processing. KO88 for individual orders, KO8G for collective. It means multiple orders can be settled in one go. So individual processing, KO88. Path for this is easy access, accounting, controlling, internal orders, period and closing, single functions, settlement, KO88 individual processing. Just enter into that, select the controlling area, internal order to be settled. I think period is 3 here. Okay, and fiscal year 2019 processing type is automatic. We will be selecting the automatic. It means it will take care of the entire amount. And test run, I want to see the transaction details. Okay, select both of them, and if you want to see the settlement rule, you can see from here also. So just select the settlement rule, you can find it over here. So if you want, you can see the settlement rule here and just execute. Why we have here? If at all we don't maintain any settlement rule, we can with this it will give you the information. And if you don't have any settlement rule, settlement profile will not happen. Settlement profile will not happen. It gives an error saying settlement rule is not maintained.
Nanda,
Hmm.
can you just click on the processing tab automatic? There are few more options right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, by period, partial capitalization, full settlement. There is some information relevant to this, but not sure. I will have, I will go through the document completely,
Okay.
and we will discuss this again, because there
Okay.
is, I don't remember, I forgot this part completely. but normally we will select automatic. It takes care of the complete amount, all the amounts posted until that point in time. So it is called as a periodic settlement. It it comes the total this thing. But anyways, let me go through this once again and we will discuss it. This comes again in the product costing as well. Okay, so we will discuss that part, right? So you can see the settlement rule. If you don't have settlement rule, system will throw up an error once you execute this settlement. Okay, just execute over here. We are executing in the test run mode. Define a number range for settlement documents. So we have missed one configuration. Go back here and you can see in the settlement area only. What happened? Okay, here you can see that part. Maintain the number range for settlement documents. Okay, this is for controlling document numbers. Okay, path for this is img controlling internal order, actual postings, settlement, and finally maintain number range for settlement documents. Just execute, and here intervals we have. This is the number range. Go back, change group, select change group. Here you can see your own. This is our controlling area, and you can maintain the number range. If you want to have your own number range, you can create, but while creating, make sure that the number range is not already there in that. Okay, or you can just select the same thing. Okay, select 1248, select here assignment and select 01. Okay, now when you scroll down, 01 1248. Okay, just save. Changes have been saved. Or if you want to change, if you want to have your own number range, you can create, but just check what is the number range it has. It has 10 lakhs. So you can keep a number range as starting with 10 lakhs 1, 10 lakhs 1 to all nines, whatever the number range you want, you can keep. Okay, so just save it back. So we have got the number range. Now let us go and do it once again. Again, I'm executing with the same information. It is processing now. Select the details here. Now you can see total 7,50,000. Now keep the cursor over here. You can see what is sender, what is receiver. If I select sender, this is a cost element that is posted, that is considered for this. Okay, and what are the receiver or receiver? Here we are receiving, the amount is getting settled to this cost center. Okay, and you can see your settlement rule from here. So select settlement rule. This is our settlement rule.
Nanda, this settles, based on the settlement rule or the allocation structure.
The allocation structure is for the receiver object. See, allocation structure, what are you mentioning over there in the allocation structure? We are keeping the allocation structure It happens based on the that's for sure. What
I think,
happened? Connectivity issue.
yeah,
Hello?
yeah,
Yeah, reconnecting. It is saying as reconnecting. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. Looks like there is some problem on the system side.
Nanda, I'm sorry, but I little confused about allocation structure and also
Yeah,
the
that's what.
receiver
Let me go into that allocation structure. Okay. Now, in the allocation structure, execute here assignments we have. Now, where are we settling this? What are expenses? What does it mean? It means I'm telling the system that any transactions posting into this is considered as an expenses. Now, if it is an expenses where this needs to be settled, I'm telling the system to settle this to cost center. I'm telling the system to consider cost center. And similarly, in the case of revenue, what does it mean? Revenue means these are the transactions, and where this is settling to, this is again settling to the same cost center. It means I'm telling the system that these are my expenses, these are my revenues. If at all we have any transactions into this posted to an internal order, it means considering these expenses and incomes, posting it in internal order, pick up that internal order, and while settling, I'm telling the system to consider the receiver object as cost center. Here I'm telling the cost center. Now, based on the settlement rule, it will settle it too. It means if I'm saying here internal order, and if I say their cost center, system will throw up an error. Now here in the settlement profile, this is our allocation structure, right? This
yeah,
is our allocation structure. Now, in the allocation structure, we are telling all these are the options, right? These are the options that you can see in your internal order. KO02, when you go into the settlement rule, here you can see all of them, all those options. Now, the important thing is you need to select whatever the category that is maintained in the in the allocation structure. In the allocation structure, what did you mention there? We did mention the cost center, right? We did mention here as a cost center. Now, similarly, the same is maintained over here.
okay. So it means, so we cannot, use anything else
Different,
other than,
different.
cost center.
If you use a different one, system will throw up an error.
Okay, I see. So
That's an
whatever, okay,
that's a controversy thing, right? So
right,
system
right.
will have a confusion.
So, but
According to the allocation structure, we are saying cost center. But according to the settlement, if you are saying something else, that's the problem. So in order to avoid that kind of confusion, normally people consider all the receiver category, whatever are relevant. It will select everything over here. And whatever is required, that will be selected over here. This.
okay, I see. Even if you just don't put it here category, that it doesn't, defaulted from the allocation
No,
structure.
no, no, it
Oh,
will not. You need to enter over here.
I see. Okay.
So here, so normally I mean, in the most of the configurations, you can see multiple receiver
Yes,
categories.
correct,
You can
correct.
see
That's what.
multiple receiver categories, but only in the settlement rule, the relevant one will be selected.
Oh, okay. So it is a good idea to just put, all these categories in a allocation structure. So
Correct,
that's
correct,
perfect. Okay, okay. Very
correct.
clear. Very clear. Thank you. Thank
Now let's go back and settle that. Now here 7,50,000. This is what your settlement rule. So this the whole amount will go and sit in this cost center back. Okay, now remove the test run, execute in the real mode. Now you can see 7,50,000. You can see now accounting documents. Earlier we were not finding this. Since we ran this in the real mode, we can see an accounting document. Now just select this. You can see now only the controlling. Yeah, the controlling document. Okay, so why we have a finance? Yeah, this is the main difference between ECC and the on the S4. So since we are using, even if you are using the secondary cost element, we will have a finance document. Okay, that's a basic difference, right? So in the old versions, we used to have only controlling document, but now you can see the accounting document, even though the settlement is happening within the controlling. Now I'm just double clicking on this accounting document. You can see salaries and salaries. It means the same cost element is considered. Yes, you mentioned there in the configuration as by cost element, right? Here we said mention it as by cost element. You can see the cost element, right? So 4 lakhs, 4 lakhs. The same thing is being considered. It is taking from the internal order, pushing into an internal into a cost center. Back earlier, earlier. I mean, in the older versions in the ECC, we used to see only the controlling document. We used to see only the controlling document, but since here in the S4 system, though we are mentioning it as, moreover we are mentioning it as a cost element, and we are finding this the finance document. Let us see when we consider the secondary cost element. I feel even in the secondary cost element also we will have an accounting document, because secondary cost elements are created in finance. So I think we will have the accounting document there also. But in ECC, we used to have only one controlling document. Any questions here? That's the difference between ECC and S4.
you.
Even I came to know about this thing now.
So it has nothing to do with the GL account, right? Like salaries account, if we can
That's
use.
what my feeling. That's what my feeling. Because secondary cost elements are also created in finance, right?
Yes.
So definitely we should be having a accounting document there. Now in ECC, when we used to settle from internal order to cost center, we used to have only controlling document. But when we used to settle the internal order to fixed asset, then we used to see an accounting document, because that was outside the controlling,
Mm.
right? Fixed asset is outside the controlling part, right? Fixed asset is part of finance. Then we used to have an accounting document in that scenario, but still here we can see an accounting document. It means that's the major difference between ECC and S4.
And
Now,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So double click on controlling document. Here we can see the internal order debited, cost center will be credited. So double click here on this. Now, if you see over here, you can see internal order is debited, cost center is credited. Why? Because yeah, internal order is credited. Here you can see negative, and cost center is debited, because it is settling to cost center.
GL account is concerned for the salaries account. It will
So,
remain.
no, no, your voice is low.
Oh, okay. What my question is that now, as far as GL account is concerned about that salaries account, that will have not no effect at all in a finance.
No, in finance, the same thing is being considered, right? Here,
No, that
4
is
lakhs.
correct. That
Uh-huh.
is correct. But my question is that if we can look at this account in a finance in a FBL 3, and I believe for a GL account, correct?
Uh-huh.
So there will not have any kind of effect as far as debit
No,
and
we will have an impact because finance document is generated, right? If you go and see,
FBL one.
we will have definitely because
Yeah.
finance document is there.
Yeah. So let's see what is it.
Now, if you see over here,
Okay, I don't see any.
oh, okay,
See, that's
yeah, it does
yeah.
not have any impact.
Yeah, that's it.
But I
Shouldn't
thought,
have any effect. Yeah.
but why we have a finance document?
I see, that is the
Yeah,
question, why we have that is, really we don't need it because we can find it out from the controlling document anyway, that, it's just transferred from internal order to the cost center.
correct.
Right.
But in that
So,
case, we have a finance document.
yeah,
Now, if you see our document numbers, we are not finding that at all.
exactly right. That's what, I wanted to make sure that, should does
Yeah, this is,
which one?
I'm selecting FB03 to see the document number in total. Yeah, here it is saying as document type as CO.
Mentioned date on it was 316, the
Three-
posting date was 3, the later date
Uh-huh. No. The posting rate is the same.
331.
Yeah, 331.
So on the other report, we gave the date, different date. So
No,
that could have been something.
no.
Okay, so but in FB03 we can see this particular document number not in the FBL3 and line item.
So if you can check the dates on that, see if that we put the right dates on that and
I'm mentioning it as all
all items.
items.
Okay.
All item I'm mentioning as all items
Correct,
because
correct.
the settlement happens on the last day of the month, right?
Right.
Let me say it is noted item or what.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
We are not getting it all over here.
Oh, what about if you can check at FS10N?
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see that. If it is not here, I'm sure it will not be there even in FS10 and
Yeah, I
also.
know that, but just to make sure, what is
Yeah, okay, just execute 31,500. This is in USD. Okay, now if I say 15,000, double click on 15,000. Yeah, this is the one we are finding here in FS10N. We are finding in FS10N. See, we are finding in FS10N.
Hmm.
We are finding it in the FS10N. This is a debit item and the credit item here is this, the balance of course, and you can see in the balance. Both of them can be seen here. It means from FS10N we can able to see. I think
But as far as balance is concerned, it has no
It doesn't
effect.
change.
It does. It just
correct, but
plus
it with yeah, but we have one more new transaction. Let us see. Probably we may have there in that. Line item browser. Let us see.
minus.
This day.
But see, he has not clicked on that radio button, correct?
Yeah, here we can see only 16,500, not that amount, of course. But anyways,
Nanda, if
mhm.
you can change the date on that top, but
No,
well,
I've not selected that, right?
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, you are right. That's what I've been telling.
Once I select this,
Yeah,
that does not
very much
influence
easier.
at all. On non-total line item.
It is, little
Different.
confusion when this says, that accounting document. It generates the accounting document,
Correct.
so.
Correct. Let us see the other one. FHGLB 0, FHGLL 03. Yes, here we can see
Yeah, but
FHGLL 03 has this information.
it does have information. But as far as, the total balance is concerned
That
about that,
is not, that is, there won't be any impact because
correct.
the same GL is getting
Yeah,
debited, the same GL is getting credited.
correct.
So there is no problem at all, but still it has to appear somewhere, right?
Yes,
So since we have a finance document,
correct.
so it is not appearing in FBL3 and an old transaction code. We can see that in the new transaction code FHGL03.
I
We
think
can
so.
see
You are
that.
right. You are right. Because of that only, because FBL3 and that is the old one.
Correct,
Yeah, so it may be updating on the newer transactions code.
correct. This is the new concept here in S4.
Correct.
Yeah,
So we have to just forget all old transactions now onwards.
correct. But always we go to a BL3N only, right? Always we go
Yeah.
to a BL3N, not with the FHGLL 03.
Yes.
Okay, so there are two documents. One is finance document, the other one is control document. Okay, fine. So this is what the settlement is. Now let's go and create, the settlement cost elements. Let's go and create a settlement cost element. I will show you creating both, the two cost elements, two cost element category related cost elements. So create primary cost element, change primary and secondary cost element, create secondary cost element. Okay, so let me just double click on the create secondary settlement cost element. Double click here on this. Now it is taking us to the same place. Now here, when I go, here in the control data, we have cost element category. Now, if you select over here, you can see this 21 internal settlement. This is called internal settlement. Okay, internal settlement. And the other one we can see the primary cost element related. So let me create first an internal settlement cost element. Okay, go and create the new one. Okay, now remember the cost element category for internal settlement is 21. What is the external settlement cost element category? That is going to be 22. So let's discuss first this part. Okay, I'm going to create a new one. Okay, I'm going to create a new one. So since the cost element category is 21, right? 921,000. Press enter. And I'm saying here secondary cost, and I will say secondary cost element range, and I will say internal settlement. And here in control data, the important thing is the category. So what category do we need to select here? 21. Okay, settlement, internal settlement is 21. What is internal settlement? As we discussed, if the settlement is happening within the controlling, I mean internal order to cost center, both objects are there within the controlling, then that is called internal settlement. What is external settlement? When the settlement is happening external to the controlling, it means if I'm settling it to a fixed asset, if I'm settling anything to a fixed asset, that is called finance, external to the controlling. Then there we will use external. Now create bank interest, we can use one secondary cost element related field status group. Just say I'm creating only one. Okay, this is the secondary cost element. Come back here, create primary settlement cost element. Double click on this, it will take you to the same place. It will take you to the same place. Now it is a primary cost element. It is a primary cost element, right? It is a primary cost element. So you need to have a range. Now what I'm going to do, I will select the expenses and I will create within this. Okay, I will select this and I'll create within this. Now if I select here, go to chain, go to the control data, and if you go here in the cost element category, now if you select over here, you can see 22 external settlement. This is called external settlement. This is called external settlement. So you need to keep the range within this. Okay, so within this, in the sense, this is part of your primary cost element. Whereas in the secondary cost element, you can see 43 and 21 so far, right? We can see them. So you cannot use this range for creating external settlement. You will have to use this range only. Why? I will tell you. Now, if I want to use this for my external settlement, now when I'm selecting new here, I will say 9,22,000. Let us assume. Just press enter. Now the moment I say here, what I have to select here, I will have to secondary cost. I will have to select only the secondary cost because my number range supports to this secondary cost. It accepts, it allows. But when I say secondary cost element here as my group, then that is fine. Now, based on this, what happens when I go here in the control data, I can see the cost element category relevant to secondary cost elements. I will not see 22. I will not see 22 over here. You know what I mean? So it means I cannot select this range for creating the external settlement. I will have to use the primary cost elements only. Because of that, I have selected over here as a primary settlement cost element. Double click on create primary settlement cost element and I will have to choose from the expenses range. So I'm going into a new 4,22,000. I will say press enter, press enter, and here we will be selecting primary cost or revenues and account group going to be expenses. This account group will justify this GL and I will say external settlement and control data. Here we have an option to select now external settlement. External settlement. Okay. So I can select the same field status group what we are using it for the secondary cost element, because I want to keep everything in the optional mode. So I'm selecting secondary cost element related field status group. Just save. The process is same exactly the ECC. There is no change at all in this. And in the secondary cost element, only the change here in this is we used to create secondary cost elements directly in controlling, but in S4 we are creating them in the FS00. Though these are relevant for controlling, but still we are creating them in FS00. FS00. Okay, got it. So 4,22,000 is our external settlement cost element and 9,21,000 is for internal settlement. Now let us go back to our settlement profile and just change something on the so let us go back to our settlement profile. Do you want me to use the same settlement profile and order type, or do you want me to create a new one in order to show this thing? How do you want me to do?
Create the new one, please.
Okay. So I'm going into an order type, define order types, execute it here, go to new entries. I will say, sorry, order category is one, press enter. I will say 20, real order R1. I will say real internal order. And I will select here as overhead cost. And I will say revenue postings. And I want to consider the same. So status profile, and I will say release immediately, not assigned, save it first. So you can go here, you can find this thing, select here, assign 01, save it. So we have assigned into the same number range. Back, go back to the settlement profile. We have already created a settlement cost element. I will go and use the same allocation structure. Can I can I use the same thing, or you want me to create a new one? Hello?
Yeah, use the same one.
Okay. So I'm going to use the same allocation structure, but the settlement profile going to be a different one. So maintain settlement profile, just execute, double click on maintain settlement profile. So I'll be creating a new one, new entries, 20R1. I will say settlement profile to be settled full, allocation structure going to be the same, and the default object is going to be a cost center, and I'll say 100% validation settlement. I'll just say percentage of settlement. I'm not going to select all of them, and I will just say GL account, cost center, and internal order. I want everything in the not required mode. Okay, document type and maximum number of distribution. I will just say as 2, residence. I'll say 3. Okay, I'm just saving. That's it. So we have the settlement profile. So we don't require to maintain a number range here. Of course, that this settlement profile needs to be assigned to a this thing 20 R1, save it. So we don't require to maintain a number range again because we have already maintained that. So here in the maintain number range for settlement, go to change, and here we are not finding the same thing. Us is already assigned here in this. Go back. That's it. Now let us go and create one internal order. Yeah, I'm sorry. One important thing we forgot actually. The allocation structure, we will create a new allocation structure because the secondary cost element, the primary cost element, whatever we have seen, that can be seen over here in this. So maintain allocation structure. I'll go into new entries 21. I will say allocation structure. I'm keeping only one expenses. Select the same thing. Source, I will say 4 lakhs to 4 lakh 99 999, and settlement cost elements. Go to new entries. Now if you see over here, we will be selecting the cost center. Now what I'm doing, I'm selecting here the secondary cost element for settlement. When I go and select it over here, I can see 21. Why 21? Because it is happening to a cost center. Now, suppose if I select here fixed asset, now you see the difference. You see the difference now. Settlement cost element going to be 22 series. Clear? Any questions?
I mean, not at the moment, but I'm still, I have to go through this again.
Yeah, FXA is a fixed asset. It
Correct.
is external to the controlling.
Right.
Because of that, it is expecting an external settlement cost element. Whereas cost center is within the controlling. Within the controlling.
Before that, I don't think, that ACC 6.0, we had, external settlement. I mean,
ECC.
a secondary.
ECC is the same. There is no change in the ECC. It's the same.
No, we have a secondary cost element, but now we have a secondary settlement secondary cost element. Before
That's
that,
what.
we
It's
did.
the same. It's the same. Secondary settlement cost element only.
And what about the secondary cost element? Only just secondary cost element.
Correct.
They are the same.
See one. Let me explain you once again. On the GL front, we used to create secondary cost elements only in the controlling.
Yes.
That we used to do in ECC.
Right.
But in S4, we are creating them in FS00. It means we are creating them as a GL, and the same thing is being considered as a secondary cost element in controlling.
Yes.
That's the main difference. Now, the process is the same here. If you are considering a cost center, it considered it accepts only the internal settlement cost element. If you select FXA, it means fixed asset. Since it is an external to the controlling, systems accepts only the external thing only, external secondary cost element. It is the same both in ECC and S4. There is no change in this.
No, what I'm saying, okay, so let's take example of the secondary cost element. Only the secondary cost element, which is the assessment cost element, right? Whenever you wanted to settle within a controlling, so you use that assessment.
Correct.
Then what is the meaning of, only just secondary cost element and settlement secondary cost element? Why the settlement?
See, I'll tell you one thing. In the assessment, what do we call secondary assessment cost element?
Right.
in the case of activity, secondary activity cost element. In the case of overhead, secondary overhead cost element. That's it. Similarly, the secondary settlement cost element. That's only the difference. There is no difference at all.
The same thing applies to the primary cost element too, right? Primary cost element and settlement primary cost element.
Correct. This cost element, primary cost element is for settlement. Primary cost element for salaries. Primary cost element for rent. Similarly.
The primary settlement cost element. That's the same thing as the primary cost element. Only primary cost element and the settlement primary cost element.
No, I did not understand your voice was low.
Right. Okay. See, I'm only just confused at the part, when it comes to the settlement cost element and settlement secondary cost element. But before that, it was just mainly secondary cost element and primary cost element. So why the settlement has been, added, into the before primary cost element and this secondary cost element?
See, primary cost element, secondary cost element.
Yes.
You're clear with the basic
Absolutely,
difference,
yes.
right? ECC
Right.
and this thing.
Yes.
And in this case of secondary cost element, particularly in the case of settlement.
Yes. Okay.
There are two types of settlements here.
Okay.
Okay, internal settlement and external settlement. Okay. In the case of internal settlement, you just require secondary cost element.
Okay.
Secondary settlement cost element.
Oh, secondary. Okay.
Secondary settlement cost element. Whereas in the case of external, you require primary settlement cost element. Why I'm saying settlement specifically, if I just say as a primary cost element, what does that mean? Does it mean a salary? Does it mean a rent? Lot of confusion. So because of that, we are saying primary settlement cost element. And here it is saying as secondary settlement cost element. Remember this part, I mean, when you go here into the configuration, when you go here in this configuration, there is no change between ECC and S4. It means in ECC also we used to have the same step, but only the difference is secondary cost element we used to create in controlling directly, but here in S4 we are creating them in FS00. That's the only the difference. Rest all same. There is no change at all. Okay, so why I'm saying here primary settlement cost element, secondary cost element. So as I said, basically we have got two things here: internal settlement and external settlement. Internal settlement in the sense, if you are settling within the controlling, that is called internal settlement. External settlement means you are not settling within the controlling, you are settling it to outside the controlling. That is called external. When the amount is moving from controlling to the outside, that is called external. There we require primary cost element, primary settlement cost element. And if you are moving the values from one object to the other object within the controlling, there it says as internal settlement, we require secondary settlement cost element.
We did not have this kind of functionality in ECC. The second settlement, secondary cost, and secondary.
We have the same. We have the same. No change at all. As I mentioned, the change is we used to create the secondary cost element directly in controlling, but here we are creating settlement cost elements in FS00. That's the only change. There is no change at all. Functionality is the same. There is no change in the functionality. There is no change in the configuration. Only the secondary cost element master data is the change. We used to create in KS01 earlier the secondary cost elements directly. but here we are creating that in FS00. That's the only the difference. Functionality wise is the same. So when you are taking the values outside the controlling, you require secondary cost element will work only in the controlling area. It will not go out. If you want to take the values to the outside the controlling area, you require this primary cost element only. That is the reason why we require a primary cost element when we are settling to the external. Got it?
Yes, I got it. A primary cost element and secondary, I have absolutely understood, even before that too. But the
Uh-huh.
only times, that I confused because, it added settlement, primary cost and settlement, secondary cost element. But before that, I was under impression that is only primary cost element and only secondary cost element. That's it. But this
Mm.
settlement has been added into. So that's
No,
why.
no, that's a just name is added. That's it. There is no change at
Oh,
all in
I see.
that.
Okay.
Primary, if I say just primary cost, what does it mean? Primary cost may have salaries, rent,
Right.
all other expenses, right?
Mhm.
So how can you differentiate from those to this settlement? Just it is mentioned, the name is mentioned, that's it. Primary settlement cost element, that's it.
Okay.
Secondary settlement cost element.
Oh, I
The
see.
term was there even in ECC.
Right.
The same term was there in ECC. Okay, so now let us go back to the allocation structure and let us create a new allocation structure. And I'm just mentioning only the expenses. Go to new entries and just mention expenses. Select the range of expenses. And in the settlement cost element, go to new entries. I'm saying cost center. And here, since it is cost center within this, it accepts only internal settlement. You see, it accepts only the internal settlement. Normally we should not get this part also. Now if you go and pick up here, you can see only the internal settlement.
Right. Right.
So either you will have to select the settlement cost element or the primary cost element. Primary cost element in the sense original cost element, not the primary settlement cost element. Original base cost element. It means expenses. If you are considering salaries, salary expenses will be considered here. If you are considering rent, it will consider rent only. Okay. Either you will have to select by cost element or secondary settlement. You cannot select both of them. System will not allow you to save here. Save it. That's a confusion to the system. If you select both of them, which one to consider? That's a confusion to the system. It will not allow you to save. Okay. I've created this one. Let me go and update this part in the settlement profile.
Before that, that remember, you try to settle the cost using the assessment cycle, secondary cost element, and you were not able to settle it. And you said you're going to work on it. Assessment.
Correct. Yeah.
So this is the same thing, I think, or is it different?
No, no, it's a different.
It's a different. Okay. So
That
that part is
process is different.
okay. The process is different, but that part is still, unresolved, right?
Yeah, that is not resolved yet. Okay, so maintain settlement profile, just execute here. Okay, maintain, double click on maintain profile. As is this thing 20 R1, go to details and here select our allocation structure, save it. Okay, I'm using the different allocation structure now. So let me go and create the internal order and let us see from there. Okay, so to create an internal order, KO01 is a transaction code. Okay, using the same thing, order type is going to be 20R1. Okay, press enter. I will just say as a real internal order, I will say company code 2000, profit center 1000, and here I'm not selecting anything in the control. Okay, so go to settlement rule, and here I have only, since I've selected only two distribution rules, I can see here. Now here I've selected only these three, so I can see all of them. So cost center I'm selecting, and I will say 2000 is the cost center. Now save it. You will understand once the settlement happened, what is the importance of that settlement cost element. So let me post a transaction in F-02. So let us take a different GL if at all we have, right? I will say, yeah, I will post rent. I will say 4,500. I'm settling to the order. So the order is going to be 20 R1. So this is the internal order. I'm not selecting cost center. Now after the settlement, we will have to see the cost center balances as well to understand clearly. 1,20,000, 4,500 due on. I'm saving. Let me post another transaction using a different cost element. Earlier we have used 400, 100. Let us consider 200. Press enter. 5,500 or 6,500. I will say the same order. Select the bank account 6,500 and save. Posted. Now going into KOB1, order execute, you can see all of them as a real object. Okay, so this is your real object. You can see value type as 4. Value type as 4 here. That's fine. Now let us settle this. So KO88, the same transaction code. Okay. Now if you see KSB1, 2000 is our cost center. Execute. Now if I go here in the value type, now you see here 11, 2.5 lakhs, 7 lakh 50, and this is the one. So let us take a screenshot of it. You can see after the settlement, you can see over here again. This is the earlier settlement we did, 7,50,000, earlier internal order settlement. Okay, now you can see that one also. Partner object type, if you select partner object type, you can see order. From order, we got this. Okay, now let us settle. Any questions here in this?
No.
Okay, back. Now KO88. So select the same thing. And if you want, you can see settlement role we have. Okay, just remove the test run, directly you can execute. Go to details, you can see the accounting document. Now, if you select accounting document, you can see the accounting document. Double click on this, see here, because this is created in finance. So we will have, as we discussed little while ago, right? So we will have an accounting document. Since it is an internal settlement, right? It is not external. Earlier in ECC versions, we used to have only controlling documents in the internal settlement. We used to have only one. We never had accounting document. But here in S4, we have even finance document because these are being created in the finance FS00. So because of that, we can see the accounting document. This was not the situation in ECC.
It doesn't really solve any problems because that you are not getting enough information by looking at this screenshot, because all the GL account is the same, internal settlement, the descriptions are
Correct,
the same.
correct.
What we
So
are getting
if you
anything.
select by cost element, you would be able to see the relevant cost element, the relevant GL. Okay, so go back, and if you see controlling, receiver will be the cost center, sender will be the order. So cost center is the receiver, debited, internal order is the sender, it is credited.
So
So
this is very important. Yeah.
debit cost center, credit internal order.
See, Nanda, you get more information by looking at the controlling document rather than finance documents,
Mhm.
right?
How?
Because
I mean,
yeah,
uh-huh.
if you can go back to the previous screen in the finance document. Okay, now accounting document. Okay, now here what information you are getting? Nothing new, right?
Mhm.
Because in a controlling document, that okay, that internal order settle the cost to the cost center.
Right, but here
Here,
also,
uh,
yeah, see here, since we have selected the secondary cost element, the secondary
hmm,
cost element is being captured, that's it. Now, once you double click here on this, now you can see the internal order.
hmm,
And once you double click here on this, you can see the cost center.
cost center. Okay, so you have to double click it, in order to look.
But you can pull that information using this change this
Oh,
thing
you can
also.
bring the info. Oh, chain
Yeah, you
layout.
can
Okay,
bring that. You can
I
change
see.
the
Oh, okay.
layout.
Right. Okay.
You can change the layout, of course. You can
Yes,
bring
correct.
that cost center and internal order. If you bring it over here, you can
Okay,
able to see. But only the problem is you can see only the secondary cost element. You would not be able to see the
right.
primary cost element.
Correct.
But once you select by cost element over there, here in the configuration, in the allocation structure, if you select by cost element,
Hmm.
if you select here by cost element, you would be able to see the
Yes,
relevant cost element.
that is true. Yes.
So since we have selected 1 lakh 20, 9 lakh 21, we can able to see 9 lakh 21 only.
Hmm.
Controlling document just gives what is the the receiver object, sender object. That's it. Okay. So this is basically the internal orders settlement. So similarly, we can also do the fixed asset. So in the case of fixed asset, all we need is just select the receiver category as fixed asset, and you select the relevant external settlement cost element. Now
Okay.
in the internal order, when you are creating the internal order, when you go here in the internal order, and when you go here in the settlement rule, we will select fixed asset. We will have to select fixed asset, and we will have to enter the relevant AUC asset. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So I'll try to complete the fixed asset configuration if possible. Otherwise, this is the process. So fixed asset, we will have to take the category and enter the fixed asset AUC asset number. Then it will go and sits in that
Yeah.
fixed asset.
Yeah, and also, when you just, enter, you if you can, put the negative amount so that, I will see what is the issue actually, I'm facing.
We can see now. We can post
Yeah,
transaction. What is there in
okay.
that now?
AUC. But
AUC. You are saying AUC.
AUC, right? From internal order to AUC,
Hmm.
using the negative amount, from the internal orders.
Yeah, but for that reason, I need to create the. I need to keep the complete fixed asset configuration. Let me see if possible. I can finish that today.
Okay, okay.
I have something else also to do.
Sure,
So if I get time, I will finish that fixed asset
sure,
configuration.
sure.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
No, not at the moment. But
Okay.
definitely, I mean, we have to just, I have to just simply, go through this recording at least, one time more. Then I will
Mhm.
make, a lot of. This is very, I mean, it's a little tricky, I mean, for configurations of the controlling as compared to the finance.
Finance is, the direct thing.
Yeah.
This is, there is nothing actually. The logic is required. That's it.
Mhm.
The logic is there required.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.